Hello, guys. How are you? Well, today we are presenting a little bit about your quiz, which is going to be about the past simple tense. So let's start. Well, first of all, we have to know there are two different kind of past verbs: the regular ones and the irregular ones. So when doing the regular ones, we have to add an ed at the end of each word. Obviously, depending the kind of word, we have to change some extra things, but most of them just add ed. And what about irregular verbs? Well, now we have nothing to do about it. It's just how the verb it's written in the simple past. You can Google the different ways of using those verbs, like this chart, which is here. And just remember and just use the simple past part of the list. That is going to be your useful part for this quiz.
Okay, so hello everyone. Now let's move on into the affirmative, negative, and interrogative ways of use the regular verbs. So as Diego says, when we are going to use a regular verb, we have to add an ed at the end of the verb and nothing else will change. So here we have an example which says, I liked the film last night. So the pronunciation, we're going to check it at the end of the presentation. So then we have he pronounced the words as the words well. And then you notice Julia's new dress. So we use a sentence with the pronoun, then we use the verb, and then the rest of the sentence. Okay. And like I said, you just add an ed at the end of each verb. So now we're going to move into negative ones. One slide. Okay, here. So here we have a little change and we use the word didn't in the case of the negative. So here to create a negative sentence, we use the subject, which is going to be the pronoun. And then we use the word didn't, and then the next word, which is going to be the verb, has to always be in infinitive form. So here the verb doesn't change, but you add the didn't. Okay, so we have some examples like, I didn't like the film last night. He didn't pronounce the words well. And you didn't notice Julia's new dress. Okay, and now we're going to move into the interrogative one. And here we must use always the did first, okay, for yes or no questions at least. So we have did, then we have the subject, then we have the verb that doesn't change either. So as we have this new form, we don't have to change or add the ed to the verb, okay? So the verb stays in its infinitive form and we just add the did. So example one, did you like the film last night? Did he pronounce the words well? Did you notice Julia's new dress? So remember that when we use regular verbs in past, we must use the didn't for negative, the did for interrogative, and add an ed ending for affirmative sentences.
Yeah, no, I was muted, I'm sorry. Well, now we're going to see some examples when we have to use the verb be and an irregular verb. The first one, I was in Japan last year. In this case, we have to use the past form of the verb be, which is instead of is and am, we have to use was. And instead of are, we have to use were. And then the next example is in relation to the irregular verbs. I ate chocolate yesterday. In this case, ate is the past form of it. So we have just to change it. Here you have to forget about the ed endings because we are not going to use them. And what about the negative ones? Well, first of all, here's the structure, which we have to put at first the pronoun, then the was or wasn't, and if the pronoun is we, you, or they, we have to add were or weren't to the structure of the sentence, and then the complement. Now, it's the negative part. I wasn't in Japan last year. In this case, we're using the other form of the structure, which is the negative. And again, forget about the use of ed in this part. And the second one, I didn't eat chocolate yesterday. In this case, the verb eat just infinitive. We have to maintain the eat. Do not use ate or any other past form because the didn't, it's doing everything here. So I didn't eat chocolate yesterday.
So now let's move into the irregular verbs. In interrogative question, and just as in the regular ones, we are not going to use the exact past simple form of the verb, but here we are adding in the second sentence the did and then the verb and infinitive, like did you eat chocolate yesterday? Okay, and then here in the first example we have the verb to be, okay, that my classmate Diego says before. We use where, okay? Were you in Japan last year? Just in case of verb to be, we use the exact structure of the verb, which is where in this case. But then when we have the other verbs that are not to be, we use this way, which involves first the did, then the pronoun, and then the verb and the rest of the sentence. So now we are going to show you the form, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So here we have the question form using the verb to be. So you are always going to start as a question in past with the verb to be first, according to its pronoun. If it's, of course, I, he, she, or it, we're going to use was. And if it's we, you, they, we're going to use where. Okay, so first always is going to be the verb to be, then the pronoun, and then the verb. Okay, and remember that the verb doesn't change if we're using another verb. So now we're moving into the pronunciation of ed endings that is going to do my classmate Diego.
Yes, okay. Well, this part is divided in three main aims, And here we have to remember a little bit about the phonetics because we have to know what are the voiceless sounds, the voiced sounds, and we have to recognize the t and the sounds. Well, let's start with the voiceless sound, like those sounds that are written here. For example, help, look, fix, dance. So how are they pronounced in past simple? In this way, helped, looked, fixed, danced. In this case, we have a sound at the end of the word. And how about the voiced sounds? For example, call, offer, arrive, clean. In this case, it has to end in a z sound, like called, offered, arrived, clean. Just are the two first ones. And when the word ends with at or sound. Here's finally when we pronounce the ed sound. For example, wanted, needed. In this case, we can add those sounds as if were written. So this is our resume of the past simple tense. Solo para añadir
Yes.
una cosa al final, recuerden siempre poner el punto al final de la oración. Recuerden comenzar con mayúscula y no se compliquen de más. Si el profesor les pide hacer una oración de tal forma, no traten de agregarle más complemento porque lo más importante acá es keep it simple en cualquier tipo de
Yes.
prueba. Así que,
Y chicos, perdón Diego, una cosa muy importante que les puede servir como tip para futuros certámenes o quizzes o whatever, lean muy bien las instrucciones. De repente, no sé, el profe les puede pedir entre will o past simple y ustedes de repente por no leer bien las instrucciones van a empezar a agregar otros tiempos verbales que no corresponden a los que les estaba pidiendo y va a estar malo. Entonces, fíjense siempre, siempre en la instrucción. Traten de seguir al pie de la letra las instrucciones siempre. Y eso, chicos, esperamos que les sirva. Recuerden que cualquier duda ustedes tienen nuestros correos, nuestros números de teléfono, así que nos pueden hablar, nos pueden llamar. No hay problema en eso.
bueno, entonces eso sería. Muchas gracias. Y bueno, recuerden siempre que estamos en grammar. Entonces, siempre la punctuation y capitalization son importantes cuando estamos escribiendo.
Así es.
Bye.
Good luck, guys. Bye.